You are the one who holds the power to change your life. No one else can take the steps for you, make the tough decisions, or face the challenges you must face. It might feel overwhelming sometimes, like you're carrying everything alone, but that's exactly where your strength begins. This isn't about waiting for someone to rescue you or hoping for an easier path. It's about accepting that your future depends on what you do every day, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching. In this script, you will discover how to take full control of your life, build unshakable discipline, and push yourself beyond comfort. You will learn to set clear goals and keep track of your progress, face your fears head-on, and protect your time by saying no without guilt. Most importantly, you'll find out why showing up consistently, especially when nothing feels easy, is the key to real change. This isn't a story about quick fixes or magic solutions. It's a guide to doing the work that others avoid. It's about standing strong when everything around you pulls you down. If you're ready to stop waiting and start owning your life, this is where it begins. Stick with it, because what you learn here could change the way you move forward every day. Chapter 1. Take full control of everything happening in your life. The moment you decide to take full control of your life is the moment everything begins to change. Until then, life controls you. Circumstances control you. People's opinions control you. Emotions pull you around like a puppet. You wake up tired, unsure, and reactive, constantly putting out fires and wondering why nothing ever feels stable or purposeful. But the truth is, you don't need the world to change. You need to change your relationship with control. And that starts by realizing one simple truth. Nobody else is responsible for how your life turns out. That responsibility belongs to you alone. When you start seeing life through this lens, everything becomes clearer. Blame fades. Complaints lose their appeal. You stop waiting for motivation, for the right moment, for someone to come along and fix things. You understand that control doesn't mean things will always go your way. It means that no matter what happens, you choose your response, your attitude, your actions, and that is power. To take full control of your life, the first thing you have to do is accept where you are right now without distortion. Most people live in denial. They exaggerate the good and hide from the bad. They avoid their weaknesses, their bad habits, their failure. But growth only begins when you look honestly at yourself without running. If you're tired all the time, say it. If you waste your days scrolling and procrastinating, admit it. If your finances are a mess or your relationships are built on fear or guilt, face it. This isn't about shame. It's about truth. And truth, even when painful, is the foundation of all control. Once you accept your reality, the next step is to stop outsourcing your decisions. So much of life gets wasted because we hand over our choices to other people. We do what our friends expect, what our family wants, what society applauds. We bury our instincts. We silence our values. And then we wonder why we feel unfulfilled. Control means you own your choices, you define your values, you decide what matters. If something isn't working, you change it. If a relationship is toxic, you walk away. If a habit is destructive, you break it. If a dream matters, you pursue it whether people support you or not. But this kind of control takes courage. It means choosing growth over comfort. It means doing the hard thing when the easy thing is right in front of you. It means saying no to what feels good in the moment for the sake of what's good in the long run. Most people don't want control, they want convenience. But convenience keeps you stuck. Real control is built through discipline, through consistency, through the quiet daily effort of showing up for yourself even when no one else sees it. Control also means managing your thoughts. Your mind is either your greatest ally or your worst enemy. If you allow fear, doubt, and distraction to run wild, They will sabotage every effort you make. But if you learn to quiet the noise, to challenge your thinking, to guide your focus, you gain an edge most people never develop. Your thoughts create your emotions drive your actions, and your actions shape your future. So if you don't learn to think clearly, nothing else will follow. Start by observing your inner dialogue. Notice how often you talk yourself out of things. How often you say, "I can't, I'm tired, maybe later." These thoughts seem small, but they become patterns, and patterns become identity. If you constantly think like a victim, you'll behave like one. But if you train yourself to think with strength, with responsibility, with clarity, you begin to take full ownership of your life. This requires mental discipline, and discipline isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You don't wait until you feel ready to take control. You take control first, and then the feeling comes later. You wake up early, even when you're tired. You do the work even when you're discouraged. You push forward, even when no results are showing yet. Because deep down, you know that every action you take is building something, even when it's invisible for now. Control also means managing your time. Time is the most valuable currency you have, and yet most people spend it like it's nothing. Hours lost to distraction, days wasted on things that don't matter. You have to become ruthless about how you spend your time. Ask yourself, does this align with the life I want to build? Is this helping me grow, or is it numbing me? You only get one life. Every moment matters. If you want control, you have to start saying no, not out of arrogance, but out of purpose. Saying no to the wrong things creates space for the right things. You'll find time to read, to move your body, to think deeply, to create, to build, to heal. But this only happens when you stop living passively. Passive living is when you wait for life to happen to you. Active living is when you make life happen by your own choices, your own standards, your own focus. This is what control looks like. Another key part of taking full control is accepting full responsibility. No more blaming others, no more pointing fingers at your past, your upbringing, your environment. These things influence you, yes, but they do not define you. You define you, and the moment you stop making excuses is the moment your power returns. You stop saying, "I didn't have support," and you start building your own foundation. You stop saying, "I was never taught this," and you start teaching yourself. You stop saying, "They held me back," and you start running forward. Responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. When you take responsibility, no one can manipulate you anymore. No one can steal your future, because you are no longer waiting. You are creating. You are no longer hoping. You are working. You are no longer watching. You are doing. And this doing, even when it's small and imperfect, is what separates the controlled life from the chaotic one. A person in control also understands the power of decisions. Every day, you are making hundreds of decisions, most of them without thinking. What you eat, what you read, who you talk to, what you focus on. These small decisions create momentum. One decision to skip the gym becomes a week of avoidance. One decision to wake up early becomes a lifestyle of focus. You don't need to control everything, you just need to control your next decision, and then the next one. And then the next. Mastering your life begins by mastering the moment in front of you. Sometimes control means making uncomfortable changes, letting go of people who drain your energy, leaving places that no longer align with your growth, starting over when you realize you've been walking the wrong path. These choices are not easy. They come with fear, with grief, with doubt, but they also come with clarity, with peace, with strength. Life isn't supposed to stay the same. If something needs to end, let it. If something needs to begin, begin it. Staying stuck out of fear is a silent form of self-sabotage, but change, real intentional change, is a declaration that you are no longer willing to be passive in your own story. Taking control also means facing the truth about your habits. Habits build your future more than anything else. If your habits are destructive, your future will be too. But if your habits are strong, even your worst days will be productive. Audit your habits honestly. What do you do in the first hour of your day? How do you end your night? How do you treat your body, your mind, your environment? If your habits don't align with your goals, you need new habits. Start small. One daily win. One better choice. One new standard. Over time, this becomes a lifestyle. One of the hardest lessons about control is understanding that nobody is coming to rescue you. This sounds harsh, but it's liberating. You are your own hero. You are your own answer. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you stop waiting for someone to understand, waiting for things to get easier, waiting for the pain to pass. No one else knows what you carry. No one else can fight your inner battles. That is your job. That is your path. And it is not weakness to walk it alone. It is strength. Finally, taking full control of your life means committing to growth with everything you have, not for a week, not until you're tired, not when it's convenient, but every single day, even in the smallest ways. Growth is not about perfection. It's about direction. Are you moving forward? Are you becoming stronger, wiser, clearer? Are you living by your values or reacting to your emotions? Are you building your life or letting it pass by? If you want to change your life, you must be the one who takes the first step and the next and the next. No one will give you permission. No one will hand you a perfect plan. Control doesn't arrive, it is claimed, and you claim it by showing up fully, by taking responsibility for your actions, your energy, your decisions, your growth. And when you do that, when you take full control, you realize something incredible. You don't need the world to change for you to be free. You don't need perfect conditions to feel powerful. All you need is the courage to stop waiting and the discipline to keep going, because the life you want isn't given. It's created, and nobody else can do it for you, so do it alone. Chapter 2. Build strong discipline by doing hard things every day. Discipline is not something you're born with, it's something you build. You shape it through action, through decisions, through the way you face discomfort every single day. It doesn't grow when life is easy. It grows when you deliberately choose the hard road, when you pick effort over ease, when you decide that your future matters more than your current mood. Every time you avoid what's difficult, you weaken your discipline. Every time you face what's difficult, you strengthen it. This is the foundation of a strong, self-directed life. People often talk about motivation, but motivation is fleeting. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation disappears. It doesn't rely on how you feel. It doesn't ask for permission. It's built by doing what needs to be done, no matter how boring, uncomfortable, or exhausting it may be. The moment you stop waiting to feel like it and start doing it anyway, you cross the line from wishful thinking into real growth. And the only way to cross that line is through consistent exposure to hard things. You don't need to start big. In fact, it's better if you don't. Big promises fall apart. Small commitments, kept daily, lead to transformation. It's about choosing something you don't want to do and doing it anyway, something that stretches your mind, strengthens your body, or tests your patience. It could be waking up earlier than you'd like. It could be staying focused for an hour without reaching for your phone. It could be saying no to the comfort food and preparing something healthy. These aren't glamorous actions, but they are powerful. because every small decision you conquer becomes a building block for the kind of person you're becoming. Most people live in cycles of avoidance. They avoid anything that feels difficult. They negotiate with themselves constantly. Just 5 more minutes. Just this once. Just today. But every time you let yourself off the hook, you build a habit of weakness. Discipline is built in those small inner battles. When you hear your mind whisper an excuse, and you say no to it, that is strength. That is how you take control of your behavior, rather than letting your behavior control you. There's a specific kind of pride that only comes from doing the thing you didn't want to do. It's quiet, but powerful. You don't need to broadcast it, you just feel it. It changes how you see yourself. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You start trusting your own word. That self-trust is one of the rarest, strongest assets a person can develop, and it only comes from showing up, especially when it's hard. The best way to build discipline is to structure your day around commitments that stretch you. Set a specific time to do the work. Don't wait until it's convenient. Don't wait until you're in the mood. Anchor it in your routine, like it's non-negotiable. Treat it with seriousness. And when your mind starts arguing, because it will, don't entertain the argument. Move into action. The more you act without hesitation, the more you weaken the voice of resistance. Over time you'll notice the arguments fade. You won't even need to debate with yourself anymore. Doing hard things becomes part of who you are. You'll also start to see the ripple effect. When you train discipline in one area, it spreads into others. Maybe you start by exercising every morning. Soon you find yourself more focused at work. You eat better. You sleep earlier. You feel more grounded. This happens because discipline creates order. It gives structure to your mind and your habits, and when your internal world is structured, your external world follows. Hard things also bring you face to face with your limits. They reveal your excuses, your emotional triggers, your mental patterns, and that's good. You can't grow if you don't know where you're weak. When you do hard things on purpose, you see your patterns clearly. You learn what kind of situations make you want to give up. You understand how you react under stress. And once you see it, you can change it. You can become the kind of person who keeps going, who adapts, who faces difficulty with clarity instead of chaos. Discipline requires sacrifice. You can't have comfort and growth at the same time. You will have to give up certain pleasures. You will miss out on quick dopamine fixes. You might disappoint people who expect you to stay the same. But you gain something far greater. You gain self-mastery. You gain direction. You gain control over your life. And nothing you sacrifice will be greater than what you gain in return. One of the best things you can do is make discomfort your teacher. Choose the hard path on purpose. Walk into the resistance. If something makes you nervous, do it. If something feels unfamiliar, lean in. The more you train your brain to see discomfort as a signal for growth, not danger, the more fearless and capable you become. Most people try to engineer their lives for comfort. They avoid friction at all costs. But comfort breeds stagnation. If you want to grow, you have to do the opposite. You have to seek the moments that make you sweat, that make you question your limits, that demand more from you than you thought you had. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intentional. You're not doing hard things to punish yourself. You're doing them to build yourself. You're doing them because you know there's more in you than what you've been living. And the only way to find that more is through challenge, through pressure, through repetition. Discipline is not built in one dramatic gesture. It's built in 1,000 quiet choices, repeated daily, until they form the core of who you are. There will be days when you don't want to follow through. Days when everything in you wants to quit. That's when the work matters most. when it's inconvenient, when you're tired, when there's no reward in sight, because that's when you're training your identity. That's when you're deciding whether you're the kind of person who keeps promises or breaks them. You won't always get it right. You will fall short sometime. That's part of it. But what matters is that you stand up again. You don't let one failure become a pattern. You don't let one moment of weakness define you. Discipline isn't perfection, it's consistency. If you want a better life, you have to earn it through effort. Not once, not for a season, every day. That effort doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. It has to challenge you. It has to cost you something. Because the life you want will never be handed to you. It will be shaped by the hard choices you make when nobody's watching. When it's just you and the discomfort, you and the excuses, you and the voice that says stop. That's where discipline lives. That's where strength is forged. Build it every day, even in small ways. Wake up early, move your body, do the work, speak the truth, delay gratification, sit with discomfort, push when it's easier to quit. Each time you do, you build a little more strength, a little more control, a little more of the life you were meant to live. And before long, the hard things don't scare you anymore. They become your training ground. They become the place where you meet your potential. And the more you build discipline, the more you realize this is how you take charge of your life. This is how you rise above distraction, weakness and fear. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for ease. You do the hard things every day, because that's how greatness is built. One difficult step at a time. Chapter 3. Set clear goals and track your progress daily. Clarity is the beginning of progress. Until you define exactly what you want, you will drift. You will waste time. You will work hard without direction, and that kind of effort doesn't lead to meaningful change. It leaves you tired, but stuck. That's why setting clear goals matters. It's how you give your actions purpose. It's how you draw a line between who you are and who you want to become. If you wake up every day without a specific target, you will always react to life instead of creating it. And people who live in reaction stay small. They chase what's urgent, not what's important. They become busy but never fulfilled. Setting a goal, a real one, cuts through all of that. It gives your time weight. It tells your mind what to focus on. It pushes distractions to the side and brings your purpose to the front. But it's not enough to just have a vague idea of success. A goal has to be precise. It has to be something you can name, measure, and pursue. Wanting to be healthier isn't a goal. Walking 5 miles a day and cutting sugar for 30 days, that's a goal. Wanting to be more productive isn't a goal. Finishing one chapter of your project every week, that's a goal. Your goal has to be clear enough that you know exactly what action to take next. That's how you turn ideas into movement. Once you have clarity, the next step is commitment. And commitment means you track your progress every single day. You don't just set the goal and forget about it. You visit it daily. You check in. You measure what you did and what you didn't. You keep score. That daily accountability is what turns your intention into discipline. It forces you to face the truth. It reveals your patterns. It helps you see if your effort matches your ambition. Most people set goals once and then drift back into comfort. They never look at them again. Then they wonder why nothing changes. Real progress doesn't happen that way. It requires deliberate effort and constant reflection. You have to be honest with yourself about how you're doing. You can't lie to your journal. You can't argue with numbers. When you track your progress, you remove the guesswork. You get clear feedback. And feedback is what helps you adjust and improve. Daily tracking doesn't need to be complex. It can be a simple checklist. A calendar with an X for every day you did what you said you would. A notebook where you record your habits, your routines, your tasks completed. The point is to create a visible system that keeps your goal present in your life. Out of sight means out of mind. If you don't see your goal daily, you will forget why you started. You will lose momentum. That's why so many people give up. Not because the goal is impossible, but because they stop paying attention. Progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes you don't feel like anything is changing. But when you track, you see the truth. You're moving. Even if it's slow, you're building something. And that knowledge, knowing you're not stuck, is powerful. It gives you the strength to keep going. It reminds you that growth is happening even when it doesn't feel like it. Most transformation is quiet. You won't notice it in the moment, but you'll look back one day and see how far you've come. And that distance was built one track day at a time. Tracking also forces you to confront where you're falling short. That's not something to fear. That's where the learning lives. If you skip a day, or miss a habit, or procrastinate on a task, write it down anyway. Be real with yourself. That's how you learn to correct your behavior. That's how you catch the excuses and replace them with action. Nobody improves without seeing their mistakes, and nobody grows by hiding from them. You're not tracking to shame yourself. You're tracking to guide yourself. You're becoming your own coach. You're giving yourself the data you need to level up. Every goal you set should be broken into smaller steps. If your goal is too big or too far away, your mind will resist it. You'll feel overwhelmed. But if you break it down into daily actions, you give yourself something achievable to do each day. That's where confidence comes from. Completing small wins consistently. It builds trust. It builds momentum. You start to believe you can actually do this. That belief is earned. It's not automatic. You get it by showing up and tracking the fact that you showed up. Over time, those small wins compound. They become habits. And once something becomes a habit, it's no longer a decision. It's just who you are. When you track progress, you also train your attention. You learn what works and what doesn't. You notice patterns. You begin to see what times of day you're most focused. What behaviors lead to slumps. What habits give you energy. All of this helps you work smarter. You stop guessing and start refining. That's how progress accelerates. You tweak your routine based on real feedback, not feelings. Feelings can lie. Tracking tells the truth. It also sharpens your identity. Every day you follow through on your goal and track your effort. You're telling yourself, I'm someone who takes responsibility for my life. That self-image matters. You start to embody the person you're working to become. You no longer just want change. You are changing. And when you see yourself as someone who follows through, it becomes harder to break your word to yourself. You take your own standards more seriously. This kind of system gives you clarity, consistency, and confidence. Clarity in knowing what you're working toward. Consistency in the daily actions that build progress. Confidence from seeing evidence that you're becoming stronger, more focused, more capable. Without this system, you drift with it. You rise. It doesn't have to be perfect. There will be off days. Life will get messy. But if you keep tracking, even imperfectly, you stay connected to your mission. You don't lose the thread. You find your way back quicker when you fall off. You maintain momentum even through setback. Goal setting and tracking isn't about being rigid. It's about being committed. It's about being intentional with your time, your effort, your energy. If you don't give your days structure, the world will. And the world will pull you in every direction but your own. That's why you need to protect your time and use it for your purpose. Every day you wake up is a new chance to get one step closer to your vision. But it only happens if you know what that vision is. And if you do the work to chase it, measure it, and learn from it, day after day, until it becomes your reality. Chapter 4. Break comfort by choosing what challenges your mind. Comfort feels safe. It feels warm and familiar. It tells you you're okay where you are, that there's no need to stretch or strive. It makes the day feel easier and the moments feel lighter. But comfort is a trap when it becomes your home. It's the quiet enemy of progress. It whispers that you're doing enough, even when deep down you know you're capable of more. When your mind is never challenged, it gets dull. It stops growing. It settles for patterns instead of breakthroughs. That's why you must learn to break your comfort on purpose, especially in your thinking, because everything begins in the mind. How you think shapes how you live, and how you live becomes your future. There is no growth without resistance. That resistance must be mental first. If your thinking is never questioned, it becomes stale. If your beliefs are never examined, they become blind rules. And if your ideas are never stretched, you'll repeat the same limited results. Choosing what challenges your mind isn't about suffering or discomfort for its own sake. It's about upgrading the way you see, solve, decide, and lead your life. When you face something mentally difficult, an unfamiliar idea, a complex problem, a hard truth, you activate strength you didn't know you had. You force your brain to adapt. And in that adaptation, new levels of focus, clarity, and confidence are built. The moment you begin doing what's mentally uncomfortable, reading what stretches you, engaging in hard conversations, sitting with your own thoughts, you begin to separate yourself from the version of you that just wants to coast. Coasting leads to regret. Growth leads to freedom. You cannot have both. You must choose one. People often avoid mental challenge because it's tiring. It requires effort without visible reward in the moment. But that's exactly why it works. The mind, like a muscle, gets stronger through demand, not ease. When you solve a puzzle that frustrates you, when you write through writer's block, when you think through a decision instead of reacting, you're sharpening the mental edge that helps you deal with life's chaos. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You become a thinker with clarity, not just a person who reacts out of habit. The best way to break comfort is to deliberately put yourself in situations that require new thoughts. Learn skills you're bad at. Expose yourself to perspectives you disagree with. Study ideas that force you to pause and reflect. Don't just collect information that makes you feel good. That's mental junk food. It fills you, but it doesn't nourish you. Seek out what challenges you to change your mind, to evolve your patterns, to raise your standards. That's where growth is. Mental challenge also means becoming emotionally honest. Sitting in silence and facing your real thoughts, without distraction or escape, is one of the most powerful practices you can build. Most people run from their inner noise. They drown it in entertainment, comfort food, busyness. But when you choose to sit still, to breathe, to face the discomfort, you learn who you really are. You discover what thoughts are running your life in the background, and then you can begin to challenge them. If your thinking says, "I'm not good enough," question it. If it says, "I could never do that," test it. Don't just accept the voice in your head as truth. Most of the thoughts that limit you were never chosen by you. They were absorbed from family, from culture, from experience. But they can be reprogrammed. You just have to challenge them with action. And every time you take on something difficult and see yourself handle it, those old beliefs weaken. They lose their grip. Mental growth is not about being right. It's about being willing to be wrong. That takes strength. It takes humility. It takes courage to let go of the need to always have the answer and instead live with the question. Strong minds are not afraid of being challenged. They seek it because they know the alternative is decay. The reward of challenging your mind is not just intelligence, it's resilience. You build an inner toughness that helps you handle stress, setbacks, uncertainty. You become less fragile. You don't break easily when life gets unpredictable. That kind of strength isn't built by reading quotes or listening to advice. It's built by sitting with difficulty until it teaches you something. You earn it by going through things others avoid, by thinking deeply when it would be easier to numb out. Each day, you should do at least one thing that forces you to focus deeply, that pushes your brain to stretch. That might be writing down your thoughts until you understand them. It might be solving a hard problem without asking for help. It might be reading a book that makes you uncomfortable because it questions your worldview. Whatever it is, lean into it. Don't chase comfort. Chase challenge. The people who make the most progress in life are not the ones who are the smartest from birth. They are the ones who train themselves to handle the most discomfort without shutting down. They know that the quality of their thinking tints the quality of their results, so they invest in it. They protect their mind from distractions. They feed it with depth. They choose growth over ease. In a world full of shallow thinking, being someone who trains their mind to go deep is a superpower. When everyone is busy reacting, you'll be responding with clarity. When others are chasing noise, you'll be grounded in purpose. And when life throws you into chaos, you won't be crushed. You'll adapt, because your mind has been through worse. The comfort zone is not a place, it's a mindset. It's the belief that where you are is all there is, and the only way to break it is to prove that thought wrong with new experience. You have to walk into the unknown and let it stretch you. You have to stop asking whether something is easy and start asking whether it's worth it. You have to make a habit of discomfort, not because pain is good, but because comfort steals your potential quietly. It keeps you average while convincing you that you're doing fine. Challenge reveals you. It peels back the layers and shows you who you've become and what you still need to work on. And in that awareness, you gain the power to change. You gain the ability to move forward without fear, because fear lives in comfort. Growth lives in discomfort, and the life you want lives on the other side of who you currently are. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to make one uncomfortable choice each day that sharpens your thinking, one decision that makes you more alert, one task that requires effort and focus. Over time, that discipline changes you. It hardens your mind, it expands your limits, and it prepares you for a future where you're not hoping for strength. You've built it. Chapter 5. Create a routine that strengthens your body and focus. The structure of your day is the foundation of your strength. Without a reliable routine, even the strongest intentions lose their shape. Life becomes reactive instead of deliberate. You drift from task to task, pulled by distractions, drained by decisions that could have been avoided if you had clarity. But when you create a routine built around strengthening your body and sharpening your focus, you shift from surviving the day to mastering it. It's not about filling your hours with more things. It's about aligning your actions with your purpose. Every small decision you make compounds, shaping your mind, your mood, your energy, and your ability to lead your life from a position of strength. Discipline begins the moment you wake up. What you do in your first hour tells your body and your brain how serious you are about the life you're building. If you begin in chaos, scrolling, rushing, skipping essentials, your focus gets diluted. But if you start with a clear intention, you teach yourself control. You set the tone that the day will be shaped by action, not reaction. Your routine is not just a habit, it's a statement of who you are becoming. Every rip you do, every step you take, every deep breath you choose over distraction, it builds something in you. Over time, this structure gives you the power to keep moving forward, especially when you don't feel like it. Taking care of your body is not about appearance, it's about preparation. When you train your body regularly, you're not just becoming physically stronger. You're training your mind to show up consistently, to push through resistance, to build momentum even when it's hard. This is about energy, not ego. Because when your body feels strong, your thoughts get sharper. Your decisions come with clarity. Your days become more intentional. Neglecting the body leads to fatigue that clouds judgment, and without focus, everything else begins to slip. You can't think straight when you're exhausted. You can't lead when you feel scattered. That's why movement matters, not as an accessory to your day, but as a core discipline that protects your edge. There's no universal formula for the perfect routine. What matters is that it is yours. It should reflect your priorities. It should challenge you to grow. And it should create space for the habits that fuel you, not the ones that numb you. Build your routine like you're building a system to support your future self. Include the things that elevate your health, your clarity, and your mindset. That might mean waking earlier, blocking time for deep work, protecting your sleep, training your body with intensity, or taking time to reflect before distractions take over. It's not about fitting more in, it's about removing what weakens your ability to stay present and focus. Focus is not something you hope for, it's something you train. And the best training is repetition. Set aside specific hours for deep work, keep your phone away, turn off notifications. Make a ritual out of entering a state of full concentration. The more often you do it, the more natural it becomes. You begin to crave the feeling of being fully locked in. And in that state, your work becomes clearer, your thinking becomes stronger, and your results begin to speak for themselves. Distractions will always be available. Your discipline must become stronger than your impulses. That only happens when your routine reflects seriousness, not convenience. A strong routine is built on clarity, not mood. You don't wait to feel like doing it. You do it because it aligns with who you want to be. The mood follows the action. Too many people waste years waiting for the right motivation, but real change begins when you stop depending on emotion and start depending on structure. The routine does not ask how you feel. It asks what needs to be done, and in doing it, you reclaim control over your energy, your direction, and your purpose. Even on the days you feel off, your routine becomes your anchor. You won't always be inspired, you won't always be sharp, but you can always return to your structure. That's what makes it powerful. It doesn't require you to be perfect. It only asks for consistency, and over time, this rhythm trains you to act in alignment with your goals, even when your emotions fluctuate. That's how real transformation happens, not through intensity once in a while, but through repetition done with commitment. You also need to protect the recovery inside your routine. High performance is not about being on all the time. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause. Burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing the wrong things without alignment. Make time to breathe. Make space for silence. Make room for presence. These moments restore your ability to focus and respond wisely. Don't confuse stillness with laziness. Stillness is where you gather energy, where you check your direction, where you prepare for your next move with clarity. A strong mind needs space, not just stimulation. Fuel your body like it matters. Eat in a way that supports energy and clarity, not just comfort. Sleep like it's sacred. Hydrate like it's essential. Because it is. These are not extras, they are the foundation of mental sharpness. When your body is neglected, your thoughts suffer, and when your thoughts suffer, your decisions become weaker. It's all connected. The routine that builds your body also strengthens your character. When you show up for yourself physically, you send a signal that your future matters, that your health is a priority, that your time is not to be wasted. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about showing up enough times that the action becomes part of who you are. You'll miss days, you'll feel tired, you'll want to slip back into comfort, but every time you return to the rhythm you've built, you strengthen it, and that rhythm begins to support you in ways you can't even measure. It becomes your baseline, your standard, your edge. The world is full of people trying to change everything overnight. They burn out, they quit, they restart. But those who build strong routines, who commit to small, consistent improvements, they're the ones who win in the long run. Because they've built a system, not just a streak. This is not about adding pressure to your life. It's about taking responsibility for how your days unfold. You don't need more chaos. You need structure that supports your focus, your strength, your peace. You need to know when to move, when to pause, when to go deep, and when to recover. And that doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. So design it, keep it simple, stay consistent, and treat your routine as your commitment to becoming the kind of person who follows through. Routines are not cages, they are launch pads. The stronger your foundation, the higher you can rise. The more consistent your discipline, the more freedom you'll feel. Because you'll trust yourself, you'll know that no matter what happens around you, you've built something solid within. That kind of structure creates clarity. It reduces friction. It brings peace to your mornings and power to your decisions. And that's not just how you improve your day, that's how you change your life. Chapter 6. Cut all excuses and do what must be done. No one is coming to remove the weight from your shoulders. No one is going to push you out of bed, remind you of your potential, or drag you through the things you keep postponing. The people who make lasting progress are the ones who stop negotiating with their excuses and begin taking full responsibility for their actions. Every excuse, no matter how logical it sounds, is still a barrier. It protects your current state and blocks your growth. The truth is, if it matters, you will find a way. If it doesn't, you'll keep giving yourself reasons to wait, to hesitate, or to avoid the work altogether. But excuses don't disappear on their own. They get louder the more you listen to them. You either silence them through action, or you let them shape your life for you. It's easier to say you're tired than to admit you're avoiding discomfort. It's easier to say you don't have time than to confront how much of it you give to distractions. It's easier to call yourself stuck than to admit you haven't done what needs to be done. But that kind of ease is deceptive. It leads to stagnation disguised as comfort. There is always a justification available, always a story that makes inaction seem reasonable. But if you keep choosing the story over the solution, you stay trapped. You stay in the same loop, waiting for conditions to be perfect, for motivation to strike, or for someone else to show you how. That wait never ends. The breakthrough happens when you get brutally honest with yourself. When you strip away the layers of justification and ask, what am I avoiding? That question alone can change the direction of your life. Because behind every excuse is a task you don't want to face. A conversation, a decision, a commitment, a standard. The moment you stop hiding from that and decide to do it anyway, you reclaim control. You prove to yourself that you are not a prisoner of circumstance or emotion. You are the one who chooses how to respond. That decision, repeated daily, builds an unshakable character. People who do what must be done don't wait for everything to line up. They take action while things are messy, unclear and uncomfortable. They don't get everything right the first time. They simply move. They try. They adjust. They keep going. That forward motion creates clarity. It reveals what works and what doesn't. It exposes weaknesses that can be strengthened. But none of that insight is available to those who stay in the planning phase forever. If you want to change your life, stop waiting for confidence. Start with commitment. Confidence is built through proof, and proof comes from doing. There will always be friction. Your mind will offer resistance. It will tell you you're not ready, that it's too late, that someone else is already doing it better. You don't need to argue with those thoughts. You need to move anyway. The habit of doing what must be done, regardless of how you feel, is one of the greatest freedoms you can create for yourself. You're no longer ruled by hesitation. You become reliable in your own eyes, and that kind of trust is rare and powerful. It turns goals into results, and intentions into achievements. There are things you already know you should be doing. You've thought about them for weeks, months, maybe even years. But instead of starting, you tell yourself you'll begin when life settles down. That day never comes. Something else always gets in the way. Life does not slow down to accommodate your goals. You must rise to meet it. That means acting even when the timing isn't ideal, especially then, because the ability to take action under pressure is what separates the serious from the casual. Those who win long-term are not the most talented, they are the most consistent, the ones who get it done no matter what. You must learn to recognize your own patterns. Notice when you're slipping into avoidance. Catch yourself when you start giving explanations instead of results. Every time you justify why something couldn't be done, you reinforce the idea that external factors control your life. But the people who progress take responsibility even when it hurts. They don't blame, they don't delay, and they don't expect someone else to rescue them. They face their reality head-on and take action anyway. This doesn't mean you never rest. It doesn't mean you ignore pain or pretend to be a machine. It means you stop letting comfort dictate your priorities. You rest because it's necessary for performance, not because you're avoiding effort. You take breaks with purpose, not as an excuse to escape the work. That difference is what keeps you grounded. It's what makes your results sustainable. You have a choice every single day. You can continue repeating the same habits, running the same patterns, and hoping for a different outcome, or you can stop tolerating your own delays. You can hold yourself to a higher standard, not once in a while but every day. That means setting a goal and following through, not just when it's exciting, especially when it's hard, boring, or uncomfortable. Those moments are the ones that shape you. There is a kind of quiet power that comes from doing the thing you used to avoid. You start to walk taller. You speak with more clarity. You stop needing constant external approval, because you know you're doing what needs to be done. That's real confidence, earned through action, not words, and it builds over time. It doesn't require you to be perfect, just honest. Honest enough to admit when you're making excuses. Honest enough to start again without feeling sorry for yourself. Honest enough to say, I've avoided this long enough. It's time to move. Nothing changes until you decide that excuses are no longer an option. That you will show up no matter how you feel. That you will take ownership of your actions, your time and your effort. You won't always feel inspired. You won't always feel inspired. You won't always feel strong. But you can still act. That's where the growth is. Not in the moments when it's easy, but in the moments when it would be easier to quit, and you do it anyway. That's where character is forged, and over time, that character will carry you through every challenge, every doubt, every obstacle. The time you've spent avoiding could have already been enough to build something meaningful. Don't keep adding to that. Decide that today is different, that this is the day you stop talking and start doing. That this is the moment you drop the story and take the step. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be real. Begin and keep going. one clear step at a time. Do what must be done, and watch how your life begins to change. Chapter 7. Spend time alone to think about your direction. Most people are surrounded all day, yet still feel disconnected from themselves. They're constantly reacting, answering messages, scrolling feeds, following routines they didn't even design. But few people pause long enough to ask themselves if the life they're living actually reflects what they believe in, what they value, or what they truly want. This is why solitude isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Not isolation, but deliberate time alone to hear your own thoughts without interruption. When you avoid being alone, you also avoid clarity. And when you avoid clarity, you move through life on autopilot, unsure why you feel stuck, restless, or uninspired. When you spend time alone, you're not withdrawing from life, you're reconnecting to it in the most honest way. You begin to realize how many of your actions are reactions, how many of your goals are borrowed, how often you say yes out of pressure, not conviction. Solitude allows you to examine these patterns without noise, without performance, without pretending. It gives you the space to ask deeper questions. What matters to me now? Where am I going? And most importantly, why? Without these questions, you can work hard, stay busy, and even be praised for your effort, yet still feel lost. Direction doesn't come from motion, it comes from intention, and intention requires awareness. Awareness that's impossible to cultivate in a life filled only with noise. In silence, your mind reveals the thoughts you usually drown out. You start to hear your inner resistance, your fear, your longings, your doubts. It may feel uncomfortable at first, because you're not used to facing yourself with this kind of honesty. But that discomfort is the starting point for self-mastery. You cannot lead yourself if you never learn to sit with yourself. You cannot move with purpose if you never examine what's pulling you off course. Solitude is where you strip away the world's expectations and start figuring out what's real to you. Not what sounds good, not what others want, but what you, in your own core, know to be right. That kind of clarity doesn't come from productivity hacks or goal-setting seminars. It comes from being still, from sitting quietly, listening to the internal dialogue that's been muffled by distractions. It's in those quiet spaces that real breakthroughs emerge, not because you're forcing answers, but because you're finally making room for them to surface. Time alone also exposes the areas of your life where you're not being truthful with yourself. You'll see where you've been avoiding growth, where you've been settling for less, and where you've allowed fear to shape your decisions. This is not about judgment, it's about awareness. You can't change what you refuse to face, and you won't know what to change unless you take the time to reflect. This reflection doesn't require a retreat in the mountains. It requires carving out small, consistent moments of silence each day. Even 10 minutes of focused solitude can realign your thoughts and reset your perspective. People often resist solitude because they confuse it with loneliness. But being alone is not the same as being disconnected. In fact, when you learn to sit with yourself, you become more connected to your values, your direction, and your inner strength. You stop chasing validation from others because you've learned to validate yourself. You stop needing to explain your choices because you've clarified them within. That inner clarity becomes a compass, guiding your actions not based on trends or approval, but on alignment. Once you start valuing solitude, you begin to see the difference between movement and progress. You may be working long hours, keeping busy, but without direction, it's just noise. Solitude cuts through that. It makes you pause and ask, is this leading somewhere meaningful? If not, you can adjust. You can redirect your focus toward what truly matters. This is how you stop drifting and start steering. Not through massive overhauls, but through regular moments of realignment. Moments when you stop running and start listening. One of the greatest benefits of solitude is that it helps you reset your priorities. You start to notice which commitments drain you, which habits waste your energy, and which routines no longer serve your goals. You begin to understand what needs to be removed, not just added. Growth isn't always about doing more. Often it's about removing the noise so the essential can speak louder. And that kind of discernment only comes when you take the time to think without distractions pulling at your attention. The world around you will always be loud. There will always be someone telling you what you should do, what success should look like, and how fast you should be moving. If you're not careful, you'll internalize their voices and lose your own. Solitude is the space where you reclaim your voice, where you remind yourself what you stand for, what you're building, and what you're willing to walk away from. Without that grounding, you become reactive. You follow momentum that isn't even yours, and eventually you wake up tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've done too much of what doesn't matter. To build a life that's aligned, you must protect time to think. Not just once in a while, but regularly. You must give yourself permission to step back, observe, and ask hard questions. Are your current actions aligned with your deeper purpose? Are you building something or just staying busy? Are your relationships strengthening you or distracting you? These are the questions that reset your path, but they require stillness. They require space. And they require honesty, especially when the answers are uncomfortable. You don't need to have everything figured out in one sitting. The goal is not perfection, but awareness. The goal is to stop living blindly and start living deliberately. Even 5 quiet minutes in the morning, spent journaling or thinking without your phone nearby, can spark powerful clarity. That small practice, done daily, can change how you move through the rest of your day. It can sharpen your decisions, simplify your goals, and help you stop wasting time on what doesn't deserve it. Eventually, solitude becomes something you crave, not because you're avoiding others, but because you've tasted the power of knowing your own mind. You've felt the strength that comes from being clear about your direction. You've experienced the peace of not needing external noise to feel alive, and once you've experienced that, you no longer fear being alone. You welcome it. You seek it out because you understand that every great decision, every turning point, every major transformation begins in silence. And only those who are brave enough to sit with themselves ever reach the place where those transformations begin. Chapter 8. Face every fear by doing what you avoid. Fear is the silent wall that stands between who you are and who you could become. It doesn't always shout, it often whispers. It tells you to wait. It convinces you to shrink back. It makes you justify why you're not ready, why it's safer to keep doing what's familiar. And the longer you obey that voice, the more you lose touch with your potential. Every time you avoid something because it makes you uncomfortable, you strengthen the fear and weaken your trust in yourself. You teach your mind that discomfort is danger, and growth becomes something you delay instead of something you embrace. But fear isn't the enemy. Avoidance is. Fear can point to growth if you're willing to see it that way. What you fear often reveals what matters. You fear speaking up because your voice is important. You fear failure because you want to succeed. You fear being seen because deep down you want to be understood. Avoiding what you fear gives fear more power than it deserves. Facing it, even in small ways, reminds you that you are not fragile, that your mind was built to adapt, and that confidence is a skill, not a trait. The hard truth is this: everything you avoid becomes the thing that controls you, and the longer you run from it, the more it dictates your life from the shadows. You avoid having difficult conversations, and your relationships stay shallow. You avoid taking risks, and your progress stays limited. You avoid discomfort, and your growth remains optional. There is no path to strength that doesn't pass through fear. There is no self-mastery without confrontation. If you want to lead yourself, you have to stop letting fear lead your decisions. You don't overcome fear by thinking about it. You overcome it by walking into it, slowly, deliberately, and consistently. You prove to yourself through action that the fear is not fatal, and the story your mind created about it isn't true. The fear of rejection becomes manageable when you put yourself in situations where you risk being rejected and survive it. The fear of failure shrinks when you take action, fail, and realize you're still standing. The mind learns from proof, not theory. You can read about courage all day, but unless you act on what scares you, the fear remains intact. The most powerful shift happens when you stop trying to eliminate fear and start training yourself to move through it. You don't wait to feel ready. You choose to act while feeling uncertain. That's where strength is built, not in comfort, but in confrontation. Each time you face something you've avoided, you reclaim a part of your power. You remind yourself that fear doesn't get the final word. You remind your nervous system that discomfort is not the same as danger. You rewire your identity from someone who avoids to someone who advances. There is no secret formula to this. It's repetition. It's daily exposure to what challenges you. It's saying yes to the thing you would normally excuse yourself from. It's choosing to do the task you've been putting off because it makes you anxious. It's walking toward the thing that causes your hands to sweat and your voice to shake. That trembling is not weakness. It's growth in motion. The body shakes when it enters unfamiliar territory. That's how you know you're not repeating the past. That's how you know you're breaking through it. Courage isn't loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like making a phone call you've avoided for months. Sometimes it means showing up to a meeting unprepared, but not running from it. Sometimes it's telling someone the truth, even when your voice wavers. Each act of courage may seem small, but they compound. Over time, these choices change the way you see yourself. You stop seeing fear as a stop sign and start seeing it as a signal to lean in. The discomfort becomes familiar, and with familiarity comes strength. There's a moment that happens after you face a fear, right after the anxiety fades and before your mind settles. In that moment, you feel something unmistakable: self-respect. It doesn't come from praise or validation. It comes from knowing you chose the harder path when the easier one was available. It comes from realizing you didn't wait to feel fearless. You acted despite the fear. That's the kind of pride that lasts. That's the kind of strength that can't be taken away. It's easy to admire people who seem bold or fearless, but what you don't see are the choices they made behind the scenes. The early mornings when they showed up scared. The late nights when they didn't have the answers but still moved forward. The dozens of moments when they could have said no but chose yes. What looks like confidence is built on a history of facing fear. It's not gifted, it's earned. And it's available to you the moment you stop negotiating with the voice that tells you to wait. There is no freedom without fear. Not because fear disappears, but because it loses control over you. The freedom comes when you stop being controlled by what-ifs. When you stop organizing your life around comfort. When you start organizing your life around growth. Growth requires you to be uncomfortable on purpose, not recklessly, but intentionally. You choose the harder conversation. You commit to the unfamiliar step. You train your body and your mind to be strong under pressure, not sheltered from it. Every day gives you an opportunity to build this strength. You don't have to face the biggest fear all at once. You start where you are. Choose one thing you've been avoiding, and do it before your mind has a chance to talk you out of it. Don't wait for the fear to go away. Act in the presence of it, and do it again tomorrow. Let your actions speak louder than your doubts. Let your courage grow from consistency, not from comfort. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for momentum. Every step you take through fear weakens its grip. Every action you take in spite of discomfort strengthens your resolve. You get stronger when you stop hiding from the hard things. You get clearer when you step toward the things you'd rather delay. You grow not when life gets easier, but when you become bolder. Fear will visit often. It will speak with urgency. It will use every excuse to keep you where you are, but you don't have to obey it. You can listen and still move forward. You can feel unsure and still show up. You can be afraid and still choose growth. And that choice made over and over again is what separates those who stay stuck from those who evolve. Chapter 9. Protect your time by saying no without guilt. Time is not just hours passing on a clock. It's your life being spent, moment by moment. Every choice you make is a trade. Say yes to one thing, and you're saying no to something else. The problem is, most people say yes out of habit, not intention. They agree to things that don't matter, entertain distractions they don't enjoy, and stretch themselves thin to avoid disappointing others. Then they wonder where their energy went, why their goals are on hold, and why they feel overwhelmed but unfulfilled. The truth is simple. If you don't protect your time, the world will use it for you. Learning to say no without guilt is not about being selfish, it's about being responsible. You don't owe anyone access to your time unless it aligns with your values, your priorities, and your purpose. If your time is constantly being spent pleasing others, managing their expectations, or fixing problems that aren't yours, then your life slowly starts to belong to everyone but you. And when that happens, you lose the ability to move forward. You stay busy but you're not building. You stay helpful but you're not whole. You stay connected, but you feel disconnected from your own life. To reclaim your time, you must first believe that your time is valuable. Not just because it's limited, but because it's the raw material of everything meaningful you want to build. If you want clarity, peace, health, and progress, it doesn't begin with some dramatic change. It starts by removing the noise that dilutes your day. And that noise often comes from the things you agreed to, not because you wanted to, but because you were afraid not to. Fear of judgment, fear of letting someone down, fear of being seen as rude or unreliable. But here's what's worse, living a life that doesn't feel like yours because you're too afraid to say no. No is not rejection. No is a boundary. It's a clear line that protects your energy and guards your priorities. When you say no to things that don't align with your direction, you create space for the things that do. You start to feel in control of your day. You begin to build momentum instead of constantly catching up. You make time for rest, for growth, for deep focus, for real connection. You stop surviving your schedule and start designing it. And all of that begins with the courage to say no clearly, without apology. It won't feel easy at first. The habit of overcommitting runs deep. You've probably been taught that being helpful means saying yes, even when it costs you. That being kind means being available, even when you're depleted. But there is nothing kind about saying yes out of resentment. There is nothing generous about giving your energy while burning out quietly. Real generosity comes from wholeness, not exhaustion. Real presence comes from space, not chaos. If you want to be someone who shows up powerfully for others, you have to protect the resources that make that possible, and your time is one of the most important. You do not need to explain every no. You do not need to defend your boundaries. A simple "I can't commit to that" or "that doesn't fit into my priorities right now" is enough. The more you practice it, the stronger you become. At first, people may push back. They're used to you being available. But eventually they adjust. And more importantly, you adjust. You begin to feel what it's like to have space in your life that isn't filled with obligation. You begin to notice your thoughts again. You find time to reflect, to grow, to focus deeply. You wake up without dread, because your day is no longer packed with things that drain you. The challenge isn't just in saying no, it's in what happens after. That internal voice that questions your decision, that guilt that creeps in and whispers that you should have done more. That's not your conscience. That's conditioning. You've been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to how much you do for others, how accessible you are, how agreeable you seem. But your worth isn't in your availability. Your value isn't in how much you can carry. It's in who you become when you give yourself enough time and space to grow without constant interruption. Productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, with clarity and consistency. Saying no helps you focus on the few things that move your life forward. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every request is your responsibility. Not every opportunity is right for you. The discipline to decline is just as important as the discipline to work. Without it, you become scattered. You become reactive. You begin to live on other people's timelines, responding to their urgency instead of building your own momentum. And saying no isn't just about big decisions, it's about the daily ones. Do you check your phone out of habit, knowing it breaks your focus? Do you take on one more task when your mind is already tired? Do you scroll for hours just to avoid the discomfort of silence? Saying no to these small distractions is where real change begins. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to interrupt the patterns that steal your time a little at a time. Time management isn't just about calendars and planners. It's about courage. The courage to say, my time is mine. I choose what enters. You are not obligated to respond to every message immediately. You are not required to be at every gathering. You are not responsible for managing how others feel about your boundaries. What you are responsible for is how you use the time you've been given, because you don't get today back. Once it's gone, and if you gave it away out of guilt, fear, or habit, you'll feel the weight of that choice, not today, but in the weeks and months ahead when your goals are still just ideas and your peace feels out of reach. So make the shift. Say no with clarity. Say no with peace. Say no, because your time deserves intention, not default. And when you do, you'll begin to see how much power you've been giving away without realizing it. You'll notice how much lighter your day feels when it's filled with what you've chosen, not what you've tolerated. You'll feel the satisfaction of moving through your day with purpose. And you'll begin to understand that protecting your time isn't about escaping life, it's about finally living it on your own terms. Chapter 10. Keep showing up even when nothing feels easy. There will be moments when everything you try feels like it leads nowhere. You'll wake up, not with motivation, but with heaviness. You'll do the work, but the results will seem far away. You'll question why you started, whether you're on the right path, and if you're even capable of seeing it through. This is the point where most people stop, not because they can't succeed, but because the silence and the struggle convince them they're not making progress. But what they don't see is that the most important growth happens in those quiet, difficult stretches, when things are not exciting, not rewarding, not even clear. This is when discipline has to carry you where motivation no longer can. Showing up when everything is going well is easy. But the person you become when you keep showing up without applause, without external proof, and without comfort, that's the person who's building something unbreakable. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you are casting a vote for the kind of future you want. Every time you take action despite your doubt, you are reinforcing the foundation of your strength. You're not just working toward a result, you're training your mind to become steady, regardless of what's happening around you. It's easy to romanticize the idea of success, but in real life, The journey toward anything meaningful is filled with discomfort, uncertainty, and periods of slow, invisible progress. Those stretches where you wonder if anything will ever change, when your effort feels unnoticed, when fatigue takes over, that's where most growth takes root. Not when it's easy, but when it's hard, and you keep going anyway. What separates those who grow from those who stay stuck isn't their talent or their intelligence, it's their refusal to quit when nothing feels easy. Success is not built in leaps, it's built in consistent effort. Not every day will feel powerful. Some days will feel like survival. Some days your only win will be that you didn't give up. And that's enough. That's how momentum is protected. Not by explosive results, but by showing up on the hard days with the same commitment you had on the good ones. You may not always feel like you're moving forward, but if you keep walking even slowly, you are not standing still. What matters is that you don't betray your own effort by walking away when it gets hard. Everything worth having asks something from you. Your time, your energy, your focus, and above all, your persistence. The truth is, life won't always feel fair. Your discipline will often be tested in silence. You'll have to learn to push forward without needing instant gratification. That's how self-respect is built, by honoring the process, even when it offers no reward in return. You may feel frustrated, tired, or doubtful, but as long as you show up, you're still in control. Pain is not the enemy. Boredom is not the enemy. Slow progress is not the enemy. The enemy is stopping. The enemy is losing trust in your ability to endure. If you give up every time it stops being easy, then you're choosing comfort over mastery. But mastery only belongs to those who are willing to keep showing up in the face of resistance. Not once, not twice, but every single day that asks for it. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, or the perfect conditions, you'll wait forever. The right time rarely announces itself. Life rewards those who begin, those who stay, and those who adjust along the way without abandoning their goal. You will face setbacks, you will meet failure, but if you understand that these are part of the path, not signs to turn back, then you develop the mental armor required to continue. When you keep showing up, you develop grit. Grit is the strength to continue in the absence of ease. It's the ability to get up again when you've been knocked down. It's what keeps you focused when your emotions try to distract you. Grit isn't born in comfort. It's forged in the struggle that forces you to choose discipline over despair. And the only way to build it is by doing the hard thing again and again, until difficulty becomes familiar and fear becomes irrelevant. Consistency is a quiet force. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't seek praise, but it delivers results that no shortcut ever could. When you keep showing up, you develop habits. Habits that become automatic. Habits that push you forward even when your motivation disappears. You train your body to act before your mind has time to talk you out of it. You make your routine non-negotiable, not because you always want to do it, but because it's who you've decided to be. On the days when everything feels heavy, focus on one step. Not the mountain, not the entire plan, just the next step. You don't need to conquer the whole journey at once. You just need to win the next moment. Ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do right now that keeps me moving? Then do that, and when the next moment comes, do the next thing. You build strength in pieces. You win the day in small choices, and those choices compound, turning effort into excellence over time. You are not alone in the struggle. Every person who has ever built something meaningful has faced the weight of doubt, fatigue, and frustration. What made them different wasn't an easier path. It was the discipline to walk theirs regardless of how it felt. You have that same strength within you. It may be quiet. It may be buried under layers of fear or fatigue, but it's there. And the only way to uncover it is to keep showing up until you no longer need to force it, until it becomes who you are. The discipline to keep going is the highest form of self-trust. It means you believe in your process, even when results are delayed. It means you respect your goal enough to continue working on it without external permission. And over time it builds the kind of confidence that can't be taken away, because it's rooted in action, not just belief. There will always be easier paths. There will always be distractions calling for your attention. But the work that matters most will always ask for your full presence. Not occasionally, not when it feels good, but every day, especially when it doesn't. That's when your discipline is tested. That's when your growth accelerates. That's when you decide who you're going to be. Not just once, but in every hard moment that follows. Keep showing up, not because it's easy, not because you feel ready, but because the person you're becoming deserves to be built with intention, not convenience. The path is not always smooth, but it is always worth walking. The struggle is not always pleasant, but it is always shaping you. And the moment you decide that nothing can make you quit, not fatigue, not doubt, not silence, that is the moment you take full ownership of your life.